Hey traders, TG Watkins here. It is March 9th, 2023 when I'm recording this. And remember, if you guys like the way that I trade and how I look at the markets and all that, you can come into the Moxie Indicator Mastery, which is the trading room, $7 for a 30-day trial. And also remember that if you do like how I trade and if you want to do it on your own, you can get the Moxie Indicator for StockCharts, which hopefully you guys can see that here. That's why we do this, so you can get a little bit of a demo and a sense for how these things work. All right, so lots of news today. Definitely lots of news today. Silicon Valley Bank basically having troubles and wondering if this is going to be a Lehman Brothers moment, or Enron or something else like that. There's some stuff going on connected to FTX and that implosion. Basically, the downfall of crypto and the markets moving down has left a few banks and institutions insolvent. So we're going to dive into that a little bit later into this. And then, yeah, also the Silvergate, so SI, another crypto-related corporation, and they're having trouble. So the market really rolled over and had a big deal today. Now, I was cautiously optimistic in through here because, well, you know, the whole narrative up until this point was that, you know, if negative or bad economic numbers were coming out, that means that what the Fed was doing as far as raising interest rates was working, and that we could get closer to pausing interest rate hikes or even reversing them, all that kind of stuff. And so the market was kind of, you know, chomping at the bit and looking for that. They were looking for the weaker economic numbers to say, okay, maybe we can get back to something like, you know, not quantitative easing, but just pausing with the rate hikes. And in through here, we had a bunch of, you know, potential bullish patterns that I was looking for, but I still needed to see confirmation. So from here, we knew that this was going to be a pullback. In the Moxie group, totally called that. That was Monday. I said, hey, shouldn't be up here, expected to pull back. I'm expecting to pull back at least to the hourly 50. All of that was textbook as far as the Moxie indicator and our patterns go. So that worked out really well. And then, you know, kind of in through here, I was expecting it to bounce a little bit. And once that bounce happened, then we needed to see if there was strength. So today was the day. Today was pretty much the day that said this isn't going to work. So right in through here, because Tuesday was a big day, a down day, this was expected. And then Wednesday kind of sideways. And then here we go, Thursday up. I'm like, okay, this is all doing what I need it to do. But then by the time Thursday closed, you know, well, even mid-morning, you could see here that price was not holding the 15-minute 50, and the Moxie indicator was staying below zero. So right here, and this was what I was concerned about, is we had a move up in the morning based on the jobless claims and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, there's a little bit of hope in through here. There's some goodness. We could see this. But what we need is we need the 15-minute 50 to hold. And I was like, I'm not quite sure that this is going to hold because the Moxie indicators on the 15-minute time frame are staying below zero. I was like, this is technically an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below zero. You know, whereas here you could see price was over the 50 and the Moxie indicator was over zero. You see how that's different? So both of them had price over the 15-minute 50, but one of them had the Moxie indicator above zero. The other one had the Moxie indicators below zero. So this previous one, great setup. This one, it's an inverse trampoline move, and I looked at that. I was like, "Ooh, this is not looking good." And so this kind of just started to pull back all day long, and I was like, "Okay, well, you know, how far is this going to go? What's going to happen?" I started talking to the Moxie subscribers and say, "Hey, you know, if this thing keeps going, this is not going to be a good situation, and we're going to be starting to. This will be started. I will categorize this as a pullback into weakness." And then news about the Silicon Valley Bank started to come out and have repercussions throughout the market. Basically, now people are wondering if there is systemic risk to the market and systemic risk to what's going on here, more than just interest rates or more than just non-farm payrolls coming out tomorrow, Friday, when you guys are seeing this. So yeah, this is starting to become serious. You know, more things are coming out of the woodworks as far as negative and bad and problems. And so yeah, now the question is, where does this go? Now, if we look at the monthly and weekly chart, And hopefully you guys remember that I had here.
Yeah, just got back from.
Let's pause that real quick. That I had put out a webinar on the 1st, and talking about, are we bullish or are we bearish? Because this is the most debated market condition that we've seen. And there's pretty good evidence for the bullish side, just a lot of history and this, that, and the other thing. And I made that case, but I said that we're really mostly sideways. And I said this is only what history is telling us. These metrics that we're seeing, but we're mostly sideways, and I'm not quite seeing it yet. I'm seeing a lot of things that maybe the bottom has been hit, but that just because the bottom has been hit doesn't mean they have to go up. We could be in kind of a hibernation or basing type stuff. So names that have just been totally repriced and gone down, maybe they're just not going to go lower, but they're just going to go sideways for a long time. I thought maybe the market could do that too. So my concern is I don't know what the market's going to do from here. If there is going to be a crash, a lot of people have been talking about out there, how bad is it? How far down is it going to go? And what names are going to be hit? So are we going to come back down to the what was it, September, October lows? Maybe, it's a possibility. But if we do come down there, is that going to be a double bottom? And did we shake everything out? Or are we really going to go lower and lower and to the third ATR? We just don't know yet. And I look at a fair number of names, and a lot of names are just already low, already repriced. And we've been seeing that the internals were actually pretty good. We were seeing a lot of breadth indicators start to recover, which is everything I started talking about in the webinar that I put out there. So we're going to just have to see how deep and how widespread this might be and how it might become. So I'm a little cautious on the short side. Clearly, we've seen in the financials that a lot of things are able to move lower. So, of course, anything can go lower. I mean, think about it. Everything can go lower. Everything can go to zero. So that is always a possibility. Lower is always a possibility. I just don't know what that looks like yet. So this was new news that has hit the wires. And, we're just going to have to digest it and see where it's going to go. So that being said, I'm going to show you a few things that I'm seeing out there. So if we look at the VIX, there was not much of a setup except for the 15-minute time frame, and the same thing was true for the UVXY. So you can see there was a elf shoe right there. You have the leg, the heel, the arch of the foot, ball of the foot, there's your elf toe. And on the 15-minute time frame, it was a trampoline move. So remember, the SPY did an inverse trampoline move on the 15-minute time frame. So correlated to that would be a regular trampoline move on the VIX and the UVXY, and you can see that we had a big move to the upside. So now we're going to have to keep watching this and see if this is really going to be a thing and how far this is going to go. Hard to chase it right now. This was a big one-day move. I would not be wanting to buy this right here, right now. I'd want to wait and just see if there is an opportunity for somehow, some way to, if you want to get long volatility. But honestly, some of this stuff, it's really just better to sit on your hands and sit out of this and just not worry about it too much. Again, you can see that elf shoe, that double bottom right there on the hourly chart for the UVXY. And then you can see here, price below the 50, the Moxie indicator above zero. That was a regular trampoline move. I kind of saw this at the time. I don't think any of us knew that this was going to be moving as big as this was. I mean, that is why volatility kind of shoots up like this, is because it's kind of unexpected. And people are trying to hedge real quick, and so that's why this shot up. It just wasn't expected. And so this is where we're starting to get some of that stuff. So that's UVXY. Now, I'll bring you over here. Let me come this place, because the IWM was actually giving us some clues and indications that this might continue to be weaker than we were thinking. So the IWM was able to come back down to the daily 50. We had this bump up just like the SPY, but the IWM was pretty clear that it was lower than the SPY through this area today and yesterday. And so it was actually the small caps that were leading the way down. It was also the IWM, they all gave us a pretty clear inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart. The question was, was it going to hold somewhere in here around the daily 50? Was the pullback to the daily 50, and were we going to go higher? And clearly now this thing has rolled over and gotten hit pretty hard. So for now, the risk is definitely to the downside. And I just got to put it out there, if this happens to recover and somehow, then I would see if maybe around the daily 200 it could hold. But Like right now, I would just we need to let the dust settle. There's a lot going on right now, and if you can be nimble, it's probably just best to just kind of check out for a little bit, because there are a lot of crazy moves going to be happening and coming up. If we look at the Nasdaq, it held up decently well, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue. So if we come over here and look at the higher time frame charts again, the indexes have been really trying to hold. They've been kind of coming down. They've been flagging. They've looked like they've been able to get over moving averages and over moving averages. Now the question is, okay, is this really going to fall off? Is it going to make new lows? Or are we going to come down here, do this and just keep chopping around? It's really hard to tell, because we are still over these moving averages. We do have an inverse trampoline move on the hourly chart, and we've built in a lot of support. Honestly, we've built in a lot of support down and through here on just trying to get up as high as we had. So I feel like it's going to be a little bit challenging to keep getting lower unless really bad stuff happens and just everyone starts running for the exits. If we look at the Dow, the only other thing that was very clear, I'll kind of slide this over in here. You can see on the daily chart, we got rejected right at the underside of the daily 50, which was also the underside of the hourly 200. Again, this part was pretty clear. I was definitely calling this a short area, or saying that, hey, watch for a pullback. That was all very, very clear. The news came out here when this started to break lower. So now that we're breaking lower, all bets to the long side for now are off, and we're just going to have to see where this goes. And then if we look at the SOXX, now another trader friend and I were talking about this, and we're like, the best looking sector of the market are the semiconductors. Some semiconductors like, that's great, AI and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is it's the only sector that's kind of looking good right now. It's like, that could be a problem, because semis aren't going to be able to carry this whole thing. And if you guys remember the last week video that I had, I said I was looking for a pullback, and we got that pullback, and I was like, it's a little surprising that price didn't get all the way down to the daily 50, but it decided to do a double bottom and started to move up, and here it is trying to hold the hourly 50. And it's like, okay, so maybe we can do something about this. And I actually did take a long trade on the SOXL yesterday. It moved up today, and then we sold it break even because everything started to fail. And if this continues to fail and be weak, well, then look what we have here on the hourly chart. We have an inverse trampoline move. I knew I was kind of going early on this, but I was wondering if the market was going to be able to hold and move up, that this could just kind of continue to move up and fix itself. But now that we kind of have what we have, this looks like that inverse trampoline move is actually going to work, and that's going to make price, it's going to bring price down. Okay, I've got more examples of what that looks like too. And if we look at the SOXX on the monthly and weekly, this was another thing that I was looking at that seemed a little bit unresolved to me. The pullback on the SOXX was only to the weekly 8, which not the strongest. It really only works if you're in a really strong trend, and I don't think that trend is here. So I don't expect price to stay on the weekly 21 forever. I think we're going to be coming down a little bit more now that everything else is looking a little bit weak. And the other thing that I saw is this gap between price and the monthly 10. I was like, that could be a problem too. So far, all other major indices have pulled back to the monthly 10, and the SOXX is the only one that didn't. Is the SOXX going to maintain its lead, or is it going to succumb to the rest of it? And now I kind of have a feeling that it might succumb to the rest of it and continue to move down. So keep that in mind. And then if we go over to NVIDIA, and I've been saying there was earnings, so let me just point that out. This was earnings, and I don't trade earnings, so price shot up, and I said if you were long, I would actually be taking your cash and just saying thank you, because this was a great run, and price continued to kind of move up a little bit, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting, and I was like, well, don't want to short it yet, because prices keep going up, but it's like now maybe the character of the market has changed, and now look what's here. This is another inverse trampoline move, just like the semis. The SOXX had an inverse trampoline move. So this looks like this is probably going to work, which means price is probably going to move down, and you can see that there is a giant gap between price and the daily 50, kind of like there was a giant gap between price and the daily 50 here. So if the market does want to come down and this is kind of the top of this run, I would imagine that there could be a pullback coming. Now, best case scenario is this thing kind of blows off some steam, pulls back a little bit, mostly goes sideways, and waits for the moving average to come up to it. I don't know which was going to happen, but I would be prepared that this might be the top of NVIDIA. And so whatever you need to do to kind of prepare for that, yes, I'd be cautious on the long side. All right, so let's take a look at the culprit, SIVB. Whoa, yeah, look at that. Major move down. Now, however, this thing has pretty much been in a downtrend the entire time. And, other than this, this news, here's a 50, 200, 50 maneuver. Now, what I want to show about that is the 50, 250 maneuver is typically a bullish setup for me. Okay, I look for it for a bullish thing. I want to see price pull back into a moving average, but I don't just buy. I do not just buy it here. I have to look at the next lower time frame to see if that confirms. And you know what? It never confirmed long. You can see price continue to stay underneath the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator continued to stay below 0. The 8 was below the 21, and price just kept falling down. So if I don't know anybody who is in this, but if you have a chart that looks like this, there is no reason for you to be long something like this. There is zero reason to be long when price is going down along a moving average and the Moxie indicator is below 0. So this was just a continuation of the downside with that news. We can also look at SI. This is, again, part of the crypto space. And same thing, it just was not looking good. There really wasn't anything good here. Price tried to get up and over through the daily 50s, but notice it just never held. Never held. Popped up and failed. Popped up and failed. And then you can see here, there's the Moxie price trigger. Hell, you can even see a double top and negative divergence right there, and the Moxie indicator was red the entire time. So this too was something that just you should never have been in. There was just no reason to be long on something like this, and it's just not happening. So there's SI as part of the crypto space and all that. Now you want to see some other real destruction. Talk about systemic and kind of getting around. Look at KRE. KRE is the regional bank ETF, and it is not doing well. Then we come over here, KRE. And yeah, you look at the monthly, weekly, it's just nothing was happening. If anything, this looked like kind of a flag. And what was that flag doing? That flag was flagging right into the underside of a downtrending weekly 50. The Moxie indicator was still below 0 and still dealing with a downtrending monthly 10. So not that I can't even say that I look at this. I don't look at KRE. I don't look at any of the regional banks. They are not on my radar. I don't trade them. Only now that this is becoming a thing are we talking about it. So I wanted to point out what I could see. And again, on the hourly chart, there were zero reasons to be in this. Here was your confirmed short entry. You had price move up into the underside of a downtrending hourly 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0, and then you had another confirmation of that right there and another confirmation of that right there. This was clearly in a downtrend. So if anybody was in this and got surprised and caught up with this, I don't feel too bad for you because there was no reason for you to have been in something like this. It was all clearly a confirmed downtrend right there. So that was KRE, XLF. You can see that one also got just hit too. Big moves on the downside, and again, right in through here, that was an inverse trampoline move, very, very similar to what the indexes were doing. And I would be willing to have looked around here and said, well, if this pullback can hold someplace, then sure, then we can start looking long. But until that happens, there's just no long, and it never set up. It just came down and just woof. So this is why this is the pullback into weakness that I've been talking about with the market, saying, hey, here's the process. Now here's price down, here's the Moxie indicator up, here's our 50, 250 maneuver, and now what we need to see is this pullback into strength or into weakness? And this one was clearly into weakness, and there were zero long setups. And it's the same thing with the SPY. The SPY had zero long setups yet. I was looking for them, nothing confirmed, so just nothing was happening with that. SCHW, I was just kind of surprised. I mean, Schwab, wow, I guess everything in the area is getting hit. Just everything was getting hit. Even more so, what was interesting is here Here's price getting rejected by the underside of the daily 50 with the Moxie indicator below 0. And again, Moxie price trigger and confirmation of price getting rejected by a downtrending hourly 50. So all the signals were there. All the signals were there, and then we just needed some, cockroach like Silverbank and Silicon Bank to pop up like that. All right, then some other ones. Oops, yeah, not Facebook anymore. It's Meta. This one is looking interesting. So Meta jumped up, and we know that for earnings. It already was in a uptrend, and I was like, okay, so it's doing all right. It's doing okay. Now, I would definitely want to take some chips off the table right there, and I definitely would not go long there because, it's just super sky high. It's literally in outer space. And so it's expected for price to pull back. Okay, that was expected. Now, if price was going to bounce, that was kind of the thing to look for. As it turns out, it bounced right here at the daily 21, and then it also got over the hourly 50. Now, all well and fine, price is following the moving averages. What is the Moxie indicator telling you? Notice this. This is the thing I've been watching for the last couple of days, being like, I wonder how this is going to resolve. Notice that price is up over the hourly 50. Where's the Moxie indicator? Below 0. So this looks like this inverse trampoline move is probably going to be setting up, and it does look like it's going to move lower. So I would be real careful with Meta on the long side here. I would be prepared for a pullback. I don't know how big. It could be big, but I would not be looking long, or I'd be really cautious if I was looking long, because this could also be a double top. And there's also a giant gap between price and the daily 50. So yeah, that looks like that could be a good Moxie setup to the short side. So yeah, be careful with Meta. Microsoft, these were reasons again why I was trying to look bullish. We were seeing higher lows, and we were seeing price starting to hold the daily 50, whereas it failed the daily 50 and failed the daily 50, and now this actually looked like we had some good stuff here. Okay, this looked different. It looked promising. We had price getting over the higher time frame moving averages, all that kind of stuff. But I said we're not quite out of the woods yet. And the reason I said we're not quite out of the woods yet for the long side is right here. Again, with this inverse trampoline move stuff. I'm seeing it at a lot of places around there. Here is price over the hourly 50. The Moxie indicator is not going to reach 0. So that's an inverse trampoline move. Price should not be over the 50 if the Moxie indicator is below 0. The other thing that looks concerning is if this continues to break down, well, the 50 is below the 200. And, you can see that back here, but you can see that the 200 was trending up and the Moxie indicator was above 0, and it kept holding the moving average. So we're kind of right at that point where, this looks like it's probably going to start changing directions. The Moxie indicator is below 0, and we'll have to see if price starts to fall off of the hourly 50. And if that happens, then, expect price to break down below the daily 50, and then we're just going to have to say, okay, well, how far down does this go? I don't know. I really don't know, and I don't know, we can still trade short term. I don't know if I would be necessarily loading the boat and saying, oh my gosh, this is going to crash all the way to $150. I don't know that. Really kind of one step at a time. I don't even know how far this is going to go down. I just don't. I don't know. So that's going to be the tough part. And then, let's see, let me look up Amazon real quick, because this was another reason. Again, I was looking at these things, and these were reasons to be looking at this and saying, well, there might be some possibility of some upsides. You can see that Amazon was right here into its previous price congestion, and you can see that there was a possible double bottom starting happening in through here. But again, only possible, because why? We have price right here trying to deal with the previous low, and we don't know yet if it's going to work. And if we come over here on the daily chart, I was looking at price here coming into an uptrending daily 50, and I was looking at the Moxie indicator above 0. So this is a potential trampoline move. This is actually a potential long setup, but we have to wait for the hourly chart to set up bullishly in order for it to confirm the daily chart. And so far, I don't have that yet. And I've been waiting. I was talking to the Moxie subscribers, and I said, hey, we're looking for this, but I don't see anything yet. So this looks like this is going to continue to be an inverse trampoline move. And I don't see a long setup now, even though I saw some potential on the daily and weekly chart. And this could continue to move down. How far? I don't know. That's going to be anybody's guess. How far, how bad does this get? No idea. And then let's see, FXI, China. We come over here and let me show you the higher time frames. This is another reason. Oops. This is another reason why I was kind of talking about some bullishness. Is that that doesn't look too terrible. We actually got priced back over the monthly 10 as opposed to it under the monthly 10, and this is something we haven't seen in a very, very long time. Like a year and a half to 2 years. Okay, so there really was something that changed, and we could even say that there was an inverse head and shoulders going on. So this is why, if the market goes down, there is a possibility that it may not go down a lot. It might go all the way down here. It could come all the way down here, and that would still be fairly reasonable because that would be testing a low area for support. Hell, it could even come all the way down here, and that would just make for a double bottom. Okay, so this is kind of tricky in through here. That yes, we could get some downside, but is it the end of the world? I don't know. Is this going to be terrible? Well, maybe some, kind of depends, but it's kind of like I just don't necessarily know where this is going to go as far as down. But I'm starting to see that there is weakness creeping in here, and you know what? All those stats that say that we could be higher by the end of the year, definitely possible. We could come all the way down here. We could bottom out. That could be the bottom of the market, and then maybe it goes higher by the end of the year. And those historical stats could still work. So I just want to put that out there for you guys. If we look here on the daily and hourly, this is another situation that I've been talking to the Moxie subscribers and saying, hey, yes, we could see that there was a bounce, but it never fired long. It never told us to actually get in a position, and that's because this pullback that I was expecting, because of the Moxie indicator rules and everything I talk about, said, well, yes, you should expect a pullback, and wait and see if it's going to hold. And so far, you can see it's not holding, so it never triggered. So we just wait. If you're long only or you're looking for a long, it's just not there yet. And so we just sit on our hands and we just watch this go by. No big deal. But I do wonder if there's going to be some divergence sitting up here. So it's just hard to want to say anything on the short side. I wouldn't get short here. It would have been better to get short up here, but I wasn't looking short. So if you do want to get short, you're going to have to wait and look for the next opportunity. And if we look at GDX, I just kind of follow this because it looks a lot like FXI. Funny enough, totally unrelated, but they look very, very similar. Same thing, look for the pullback here, just as I always guide with the rules. The pullback never found support, so we never took a trade. There's nothing to do here. Again, I do wonder if there's going to be some positive divergence that works out later. Is this going to be an elf shoe? Is it going to be a double bottom in through here? Maybe, but I don't know yet, and I don't see any signals yet. And so this is why I'm stuck between a little bit of a rock and a hard place. I don't want to go long. I definitely can't go long. There's nothing that says go long. But I don't know what short looks like either. I don't know how much further these things want to go back down. So it's challenging to see where we are. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And we're going to have to let some of this news settle. So again, do be careful out there. And we'll catch you at the next one. Thanks again.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.